Today marks the fourth nuclear security summit for President Obama. He says that a treaty ratified by 102 nations protecting nuclear material will go into effect soon. The summit comes amid growing concern about nuclear weapons falling into the hands of ISIS after a wave of attacks in Europe.
No terrorist group has succeeded thus far in obtaining a nuclear weapon or a dirty bomb made of radioactive materials. But we know that Al-Qaeda has long sought nuclear materials. If these madmen ever got their hands on a nuclear bomb or nuclear material, they most certainly would use it to kill as many innocent people as possible.
Absent from this summit, Russian President Vladimir Putin. It's particularly noticeable since Russia and the U.S. control more than 90% of the world's nuclear stockpile. Let's bring in Mark Dubowitz, Executive Director at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Why did Vladimir Putin essentially decide to boycott this meeting, Mark?
Well, Putin and Obama have obviously had a frigid relationship as of late, and Putin, I think, wants to send a message that he is the indispensable man, that you're not going to conclude anything worthwhile on the nuclear front or on any other front unless he's there. And I don't think he wanted to show up to Washington and be under international pressure. He's out of compliance with numerous treaties that he signed with respect to non-proliferation, and I think decided to send a message, I'm the major domo of global politics right now, and if I'm not there, you're not getting anything done.
So can an agreement that is forged without Vladimir Putin's signature, can it be effective?
Well, it could be somewhat effective with respect to some countries, but the reality is the real serious concern about nuclear material actually relates to Russia's program and the fact that their facilities and their material have not been fully secured. So without Putin's contribution and commitments to securing nuclear material, the agreement is, I think, will be highly ineffectual.
Obviously, there is a lot of concern these days about the Iranians and what they are up to with regard to their nuclear program. Does this agreement do anything to reassure us about that?
Well, it doesn't at all. And in fact, the nuclear agreement that President Obama signed with the Iranians is a deeply flawed agreement that's going to give Iran, over a 10-year period, an industrial-sized nuclear program where they'll be, after 15 years, be able to actually produce literally tens of thousands of kilograms of enriched uranium. Now, remember, Iran is itself a state sponsor of terrorism. So a state sponsor of terrorism is going to have enriched uranium, never mind handing that off to terrorist organizations like Hezbollah. So deep concern, deeply flawed agreement, and certainly this is not going to address that at all.
And then we get to a nuclear North Korea, which has just launched well, I guess it's not a ballistic missile, but it's a short-range missile, the kind that potentially could be fitted to carry nuclear weapons. What are they up to?
North Koreans sound like they're on their path to developing a miniaturized ICBM, certainly an ICBM that could hit cities like Chicago. It also is developing thermonuclear weapons, and the North Koreans have somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20 or so nuclear bombs. It's interesting, this is President Obama's 7th nuclear security summit, and in that time, the North Koreans are on a pathway to developing somewhere between the neighborhood of 20 and 100 nuclear weapons within about 5 years.
The president has said he wants to see a world devoid of nuclear weapons. He said it might not happen in his lifetime. Is he dreaming?
Oh, he's dreaming. Not only dreaming, but I think he's also following policies that actually are going to lead to the proliferation of nuclear weapons, not their elimination. And the nuclear deal with Iran is a classic example of a deal that is going to trigger proliferation in the Middle East, one of the world's most dangerous regions, as the Saudis and the Emiratis and others begin to adjust to this nuclear deal. And they've said very explicitly, we want the same deal as Iran. We also want an industrial-sized nuclear program. So the Middle East could be on a nuclear hair trigger, and that could be President Obama's legacy.
Wow. Mark Dubowitz from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Mark, thank you.
Thanks, Ron.